Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Abington School Committee meeting. Tonight is Thursday, September 10th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and if everyone could stand to salute our flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So at this time, I would like to ask if Chris and Danielle would like to discuss the report of subcommittees with Peter for the business and finance.
So if I could take it, we have corresponded with information back and forth. Really, for the committee tonight and for the community tonight, we wanted to make sure people were aware that we anticipate an October town meeting pending successful consideration of new monies to Abington. The school department budget would be increased at that meeting. There's a memo in the packet that describes the increase of $1.1 million in funding to the town, and then $410,000 added to this year's budget. And then it outlines from Felicia anticipated expenditures. Obviously, in this new situation that we're living in, there are many unknowns in terms of what will need to be addressed as we move forward through the pandemic. But this memo just basically outlines that and informs the committee that that's what we anticipate will be occurring in October.
Yeah, and as Wendy, as Peter said, Danielle, I, and he had some correspondence about it, and we went over it. I'm hopeful at town meeting we're able to get the money that's assigned, and I don't want to speak for, but I think we agree that the items listed are at least the best guess as to start of where these funds may be best used in the upcoming school year.
Perfect, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. At this time, there's no motion as anticipated, so we could just move on. Next, thank you for the report. We appreciate it. Next, we'd like to speak about, the athletic director, Peter Serino, would like to speak about the consideration of changes to the Abington High School athletic program for the 2020-2021 school year. So Mr. Serino is on his way up.
Thank you very much. So I guess there's two items primarily to go through here. I think it makes sense to start with the overall athletic program changes, and then we can get to the specifics of the students who chose the virtual option participating. So this is not unique to Abington. All of the decisions that we made fell in line with guidelines from the EEA, who's been doing youth sports throughout the summer, and then they partnered with DESE, and then the MIA from there. And then also on top of that, we have the South Shore League guidance as well. So with taking all of that into consideration, the fall sports that we intend on offering at Abington High School this fall are soccer, cross country, and golf. And those will be offered in their traditional sense as much as we can. There are several sport-specific modifications, so it might not look like soccer as you know it, but it will be soccer as we're going to play it in the state of Massachusetts. With that comes the move of 3 traditional fall sports, football, competitive cheerleading, and girls volleyball, to the fall 2 season. So the MIA provided a 4th season that they're referring to as the floating season, and that will start at the end of February and run into April, and that is designated for sports that are not played in their traditional season. Football and competitive cheerleading are not allowed to be played currently, so that they had to be moved, and volleyball, the South Shore League made the decision to move to that season for a variety of reasons, primarily because it's the only indoor sport So when you bring a group of people indoors and potentially a group from another school indoors, the potential for fans and so forth, the athletic directors, principals, and superintendents as a league felt it was best to move that to the fall 2 season. With that being said, we are hopeful that we will be able to offer some type of activity centered around those 3 sports at some point that fall within the guidelines. So cheerleading, it's not going to be the competitive cheerleading you think of. Usually there's a lot of close contact and so forth within that. But in working with our cheerleading coach, she thinks she might be able to provide a social interaction that's based around cheerleading a couple days a week. And then the same thing, our football coaches are working through the guidelines to figure out how they can do something that fits, and volleyball as well. Our volleyball coach ran a successful camp outdoors this summer, so we're looking at potentially doing a club there, so the kids will have those options. Our primary focus will be to get the traditional competitive sports off the ground first, and then once we do that successfully, hopefully early October, we'll move into looking at the club situations. The first day of tryouts would be September 25th. Again, this was a league decision. The MIA allows you to start as early as the 18th, but the league made the decision to start a week later to kind of phase in and let our students and teachers, who are also coaches, to focus on the opening of school. So hopefully we'll do that successfully for a week, and then we can move to athletics from there. We might have some virtual meetings that week to kind of prepare and go over some of the guidelines, but that's where we go. The offerings will be modified in terms of the schedules and so forth. It will certainly be a challenge without being able to use locker rooms and a lot of things that kids are accustomed to, but our coaches have been meeting all summer, both within Abington and their networks outside of it. So we're confident that we'll be able to do something. It's not going to be ideal, but I'm confident that's the best that we can do, and we'll be able to provide that opportunity. So I guess what I'd be looking for is the school committee's support to offer the sports as outlined with the starting date of September 25th.
So if I could just build on a couple of things here that Peter mentioned. I want to point out that all of this is about safety first and making sure we're consistent with our safety practices with the athletic program, the same way that we are with the programs that take place inside our buildings. Peter has been a leader, to be honest with you, on the South Shore in terms of these discussions, and I just want to publicly thank him and acknowledge that work that he's been doing. This is also about student participation to the extent that we can do safely, because after we accommodate the needs of what has to be done for student safety and actually the safety of the community at large and our staff and the people participating in this, it's about engaging our students as best we can in these activities. This is not obviously what anybody wants to see with any of our student athletes, but it's the best that we can do in these circumstances. And there can be confusion between what you might see in the community and what other youth groups or other sports are doing. We don't have any control over those, and I've gotten a number of questions from the community. Why is it that this group can do that, but our athletes have to do that? It's because we have to follow very strict rules, and those other programs are not under the umbrella or the responsibility, the auspices of the Abington Public Schools. And so I just wanted to give people that designation, because they'll drive by a field and they'll see a bunch of younger individuals on a field that they probably shouldn't be on, and they're not practicing what they should be practicing. That is beyond our responsibility and control, and this is about the health and safety of our student athletes, faculty, staff, and the community at large. So,
Thank you. And just 2 other quick notes I should have mentioned on the safety. The transportation piece might result in some challenges in terms of getting our teams places. So there's a chance that we might restrict travel rosters at times, just what we can fit on a bus. I'm optimistic that we'll be creative and that won't happen, but it is certainly a possibility. So I want people to be aware of that. And also fans at games, there are restrictions, and that's something that we're going to have to work through. But the community most likely will not be able to attend games as they have, and even there might be times where parents and family are restricted from attending games. We're going to do our best within that, but I just do ask for people's patience and understanding with those things.
Peter, can I ask you a question really quick? You mentioned how the fall two floating will be February 22nd to April 25th. That generally runs in line with spring. I'm guessing spring's going to start later and go later.
Yep, so the MIA set they pushed the spring date back to start immediately following that, and it will run no later than July 3rd.
Okay.
And those dates are all flexible. As we get into the spring, there is an opportunity for us to petition as a league to our district in the MIA to adjust those dates slightly. If we look at it and we say, we can get volleyball done by, April 15th, can we start spring sports early? It does afford leagues and districts that flexibility.
Okay, yeah, it was more a question of kids playing in 2 seasons at once kind of thing. I didn't know if they were going to overlap or not.
Yeah, there should be no overlap. The only potential for overlap is if the MIA does offer postseason play. They're not for the fall, but for example, if the situation improved and they felt they could in the winter postseason could extend into the preseason of the fall 2 season. And students can participate in 4 seasons. I know some people have asked about that. If traditionally they play girls volleyball in the fall, could they play soccer, then play basketball, then play volleyball, and then run track? They can do that. So that's a unique opportunity.
So I have a question. We're voting on these changes for the new fall season. Do we have to vote each season since the seasons are changed, or is it just this vote covers like the whole school year, what MIA has dictated as the new seasons?
So this would cover what's enclosed here, and as things change, we would want to adjust that either to do more or less depending on how things change with the virus.
Okay. Are you speaking about the virtual part of this? Is that something you're still going to speak of, or?
Would the committee be willing to consider the program first and then have Peter do that next?
Yeah, I just have one question about, and I don't know if it falls into the second part or not, but students, I know they have to check in for an attendance on each day of school, and I know typically that if you don't check into school, then you're not allowed to play a sport. How is that going to be tracked to make sure kids log in? So if it's a remote day, if they don't log in for attendance in the morning, are they not able to participate in the sport in the afternoon?
So it's a complicated answer, but yes, essentially. So we will still have a daily attendance. So if they miss school, the attendance policy is still there. And the virtual day is a day of school. So if they fail to check in, yes. But I also think there's always the opportunity to make exceptions, the administrative discretion, and I would imagine early on, there might be some cases where that comes up. So if that does, as has always been the case previously, a student can, ask myself or the principal or assistant principal, to reconsider, and usually there's an explanation that comes with it, and then, ultimately we can make an exception, or we can say, no, you were supposed to be there, the past 4 Tuesdays, you haven't gotten up and logged into math class, you can't go to soccer.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions about this portion? If not, then we'll make a motion. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the fall sports offerings?
I'll make a motion.
Anyone to second it?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. And is it Peter that talks about? Okay. The
Thank
second
you.
part. Thank you.
So the next item related to athletics is the students in the all virtual cohort. So these are the students that will not be attending any in-person classes in Abington High School. So we needed to figure out would they be able to participate in athletics and what would that look like. So we outlined a policy here. Essentially what it would be is any student in the virtual cohort who would like to participate in athletics can request to do so, and then that request would initiate a process where they would have a meeting, the student and potentially their parents. It could very well be virtually through Microsoft Teams with myself, the coach, and the guidance counselor. The idea behind that was to create an opportunity for a conversation and to get an understanding as to why the parent feels that they can play soccer but not attend school. And we came up with a number of reasons where that would make perfect sense. but we didn't want to blanketly say yes or blanketly say no. So this creates an opportunity for the dialogue, and also additionally, I think it creates an avenue to hopefully transition the student back in, where they can have regular communication. And then on each case after that meeting, the guidance counselor, myself, and the coach will make a recommendation to the principal for either to allow participation or not. And ultimately, the principal will make that decision.
Peter, is that in writing somewhere, that last part about the interview, or not the interview, but the conversation with the guidance counselor? Do we have that in our packet?
Yes.
I believe so.
It's in the back of the sport.
The sports.
Okay.
So it says the request will be reviewed by the athletic director, coach of the individual sport, and the student's guidance counselor. The student and/or parent may be required to meet virtually with the guidance counselor, athletic director, and coach. After reviewing the request and a potential meeting, the athletic director, coach, and guidance counselor will make a recommendation to the principal for decision.
Can we talk about that part for a minute?
Of course.
So the wording may, the student and/or parent may be required to meet virtually. Is it they may be or they must be required to meet?
So we put may, and my thinking with that was if, Joe plays soccer in the fall and it goes well and they want to play, basketball in the winter, do we need to have that additional meeting or not? So we didn't want to, force the meeting in there, but I'm open to
Yeah,
suggestions.
I'm sorry, I guess I just didn't make this connection that this part was happening. I knew that, I looked at the front of the page, but I didn't look at the second page in detail enough before this evening. I guess, as you were talking, and this is just a consideration, something that I'm thinking about is, does it feel punitive for people who chose a virtual pathway that they have to have a meeting with a guidance counselor? Because we're kind of talking apples and oranges to some regard. Like, to play soccer is to make a choice for your family or your child, that you're choosing outdoor activities versus 5.5 hours inside. So I don't know if, I can understand the rationale behind wanting to have a conversation like, why are you choosing soccer or sports but not choosing in-person learning for 2 days a week? But I'm wondering if that's, if we should think about that a little bit. I don't know if how anybody else has any opinions. I just didn't catch that until you described it, so thanks for describing that.
Are you saying that they shouldn't have a meeting, or they should have a meeting?
I'm saying the kids who are coming to school 2 days a week don't have to have a meeting
Oh, okay.
to choose to play a fall. If I'm going to school 2 days a week in the green cohort, I can play soccer without my family needing to meet virtually with the guidance counselor. But if I chose the remote pathway for my other child, for whatever reason, we have to have a conversation. And I'm like, I just don't know if families or anybody else would have an issue with that. Maybe it's not a big deal at all.
So I can provide some of the thinking behind it. And one of our coaches, I thought, put it best was, they're still our student, and we're responsible for them, but we're not seeing or interacting with them regularly. So for example, if the student doesn't do anything in the fall, but then in the winter wants to participate, there's a chance that no one from the Abington Public Schools has seen or talked to this kid in a couple months, because they've been doing the virtual option. And yes, we've been getting reports that they're doing their work and whatever, but we haven't had that communication and that dialogue. So it just creates an opportunity for that dialogue to happen, to understand where that student is when they're coming back in. So our coaches are aware if there are other issues going on, are there concerns, where are we at? So that was a big piece of it, is they're still our student, and we're ultimately responsible for them. So any opportunity that we have to create connections with that student and that family, we wanted to take advantage of.
That makes complete sense. I'm just in more of a note, because I know that people listening might be thinking this. So when the people chose the virtual pathway, that's what we call it, right? Virtual pathway. They were hopeful or under the assumption that it would be taught by an Abington Public School teacher. So and they got some disappointing news, not our fault, and actually, the virtual program is fantastic, but it's now, because we're sort of outsourcing or giving them a seat in a different program, that they don't have the connection to an Abington school teacher knowing how they're doing in the day-to-day, and why what you just described makes sense, that we would want to check in. But I just wanted to make note that has been a little bit confusing maybe for families, not anyone's fault, but just a note on that they were under the assumption that their child would learn, hopefully, with an Abington Public School.
Some
staff.
of the examples that I know that have been considered by high school administration and the athletic directors in the area are just the entire spectrum of reasons that students may be choosing the entirely virtual pathway. It's so hard to talk to you, Jackie, when I feel like I should make eye contact with you.
You're not
I'm
allowed to
sorry.
face backwards, so just keep talking forward.
So you may get someone who's choosing the virtual route because they have medical concerns or issues, or they're concerned about being in person, all sorts of reasons. You may also have them because a family has unfortunately needed them to be home to take care of younger siblings, and that's just what that family's doing to get through a pandemic, and then help those kids because other people have to go to work. And we want to be sensitive to that, and those high school kids are keeping up with their studies. Then you can also have families that, somebody's getting a lot of hours at the supermarket, or, the number of incidents of violations of the child labor laws during this pandemic have been unfortunately on a huge rise. And so this affords the opportunity for people just to check in if it's needed, as needed, to make sure that things are going okay.
So then, if we're going to vote on the language of this, hearing you say that, I would ask us to consider removing the language that says, after reviewing the request and a potential meeting, the athletic director, coach, and guidance counselor will make a recommendation to the principal for decision. Because are we going to be talking and communicating with TECA to find out, would that, because otherwise, what business do we have? We can have a conversation with parents about how their child is doing in that program, but unless we talk with them directly, I don't know how what would we make our recommendation on?
Just for informational purposes, people should know that we will be continually communicating with TECA in terms of attendance and grades and making sure the kids are okay.
And the students will still be required to meet the academic standards laid forth to participate. So that'll be on us to communicate with the TECA program to make sure that they're meeting all the requirements.
So maybe it's easier to ask, do you see a situation where the request wouldn't be honored?
It's hard for me to say. There's not one that I can jump out and say. I know we did consider, so this draft came from a lot of conversations with different coaches, different athletic directors, what other schools are doing. If a kid says, "Oh, I'm just not coming to school because I don't want to," maybe, okay, well, are we gonna talk about that? But then it allows us to have that conversation, and the guidance counselor is that professional to figure out, well, why don't you want to? Is there something else going on? I can't speak. Ultimately, it'll be the principal's decision. I can't come up with a scenario, but I think if there is one, the conversation will be very beneficial rather than just a blanket yes.
I think maybe what Jackie, maybe it should read something like, after reviewing the request, reviewing academic progress. Is that what you're getting at, Jackie? Like that there is a review of their academic?
I'm always just thinking about it from the listening ear. I don't have a child in this situation, so to me, this is like a moot point. But if I did choose the virtual pathway, thinking it was going to be taught by an Abington public school teacher, and thinking that, yeah, if soccer is offered at the high school level, why wouldn't he or she play soccer, right? That wasn't part of the conversation when people were choosing their mode of academic instruction. Now it's just a considerate, now they're having to do something that the hybrid students their families don't have to do, and I totally understand the rationale for why we need to kind of have that, almost like an intake meeting to say, how are things going? I just, with things like reviewing requests and deciding, it just a little bit makes me uncomfortable about, like, do we have clear understanding of what warrants a request being honored, that you get to play soccer but you don't? Is it attendance? Is it academic performance in the TECA program? Like, I don't know, maybe we can move on. I
wanted to add, I think it is important to have a meeting to find out, I mean, I get, like it was laid out, why they wish to participate in athletics after choosing the virtual academic option. Like, what is the reason for choosing the virtual academic option? And I think some of the language is there to cover an entire basis. I mean, it can be broad for a certain extent. But Peter, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember when the MIAA rules came out. And I believe it said if a high school chose to go fully remote, that the school committee would have to vote if anybody could even participate in athletics anyway. So and this is almost taking that step by somebody choosing to go fully remote. We're voting in a policy where that has to come into play, where somebody has to make that decision.
I believe that is correct. I believe at one point, if a school was fully remote, they could not do athletics. And then there was revised direction that said if the school committee said it, they could.
So they came out of the gate with, if you went virtual, fully virtual, you would not participate. And then that was backed, I think, because people thought about it and the circumstances in people's lives and the need for kids to encourage them to be participating. And so this is actually an avenue to get them in.
So are we voting two separate things, the offerings for fall and then the participation language?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions or concerns at all? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to vote on the virtual cohort athletic participation language?
So
I'll second it.
are we going out of order? Did we make the first vote on?
Yeah, we already
Okay,
did that.
sorry.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm opposed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Great job. We appreciate all
Thank
your
you,
hard
Peter.
work. All right, next on the agenda is the consideration of a proposed policy on face coverings.
So I'm going to stay with the theme, safety first, and then safety, This face covering policy is one that started with a recommendation from MASC and then has gone through several revisions and discussions. And to be quite honest with you, there's been great discussion, a great amount of discussion about face coverings, and this is what was landed upon. And I won't read this to you, but I just want to hit the high points that this is in compliance with what the recommendations are for the CDC and the DPH in terms of what masks are and what they look like. They must cover the nose and the mouth. They must fit snugly against the side of the face. They need to be securely in place, multiple layers of fabric, allow for breathing without restriction, and be able to be laundered or machine dried without damage, unless they're obviously a paper mask. This also would cover us for kindergarten through grade 12. It would be required for masks to be worn. Masks would be removed at different points in the day during designated breaks when people are only 6 or more feet apart. And then those areas where the mask break took place, if they're not outside, are cleaned before another group is able to be in that area. The only exceptions to this policy would be for people who bring a doctor's note. I am not a doctor, thank goodness. Nobody wants me to be a doctor, but what I've been told is that doctors are, if there's a medical need or a special circumstance, if people aren't wearing masks, they're then recommending that people are provided those face shields. That doesn't mean that all doctors are doing that, but that's what I've been told many doctors are doing. But those would be the only exceptions to this. We're asking that families send students to school with a mask. If they don't, one would be provided. This also includes all aspects of school life, so it would include our buses, and as students come to school on our school buses. And we know that this is going to be a challenge for the school department, for any school department. All Massachusetts school departments are going to be struggling with this. Hopefully, our students are more and more accustomed to having to wear masks when they're out with their families. And this is something that we're going to have to really set the tone and the culture that it's compliance around wearing masks, that everybody's going to have to wear a mask. And then depending on the age level, obviously, this is going to be a challenge at different age groups for different reasons in different ways. The little guys who are fidgety and they almost like, even if they're sitting still, they're vibrating and hovering over their seat. This is going to be a challenge with those groups of students, and teachers will continue to work with them to get them to be in compliance with this. And then at the older level, you know, I can see that there will be times when students might refuse to wear masks. And then at some point, if there's just a blatant refusal to wear a mask in the school day, those students would working with the parent, would have to be sent home because we have to have compliance with this rule. And I think those are the high and the low points. I want to answer questions that people might have.
Thank you. Questions, anyone? I know that we've spoken about this a lot, so if there are no questions, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the face coverings as presented?
I'll make a
Policy?
motion.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The next item I need to ask the committee to please consider is the code of conduct for remote learning. So it's basically the rules that apply to any classroom, plus in our student handbooks, plus, well, it's not additional, but we don't want the use of cell phones, for example, during the online learning. Having the camera on so that teachers know that the students are engaged. Not having distracting backgrounds when you're on a call with your classmates that takes away from the learning. You have the policy in front of you. I don't want to read every single aspect of it. Be attentive and engaged, again, as you would be in a normal classroom. Obviously, unfortunately, during a pandemic, we have to rely on parents to help us when kids are at home, providing the support and the productive learning of kids online. And this gives us, and hopefully it will also give parents, you know, hey, these are part of the rules, you gotta follow the rules, and it's a place to begin to communicate expectations for kids in terms of online learning.
Thank
Answer
you.
any questions people might have.
Okay, if there are no questions, I know this is another one that we've spoken about quite often over the last couple of months, so can I get a motion to approve the code of conduct for remote learning as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
So the next one is one of the things that we're required to do when using hand sanitizers in school buildings in Massachusetts. It's basically an opt-out letter. It'll go in the handbooks, and it basically says that if for some reason your student can't use hand sanitizers, please let us know, and then we will make sure that those students are provided an alternative like soap and water. But it puts the onus on the parent to let us know if there's some condition, for example, a sensitivity or allergy, so that we're aware of it. It's part of the doctor's standing orders for school systems, and in terms of our top-to-down review of all the things we have to do in COVID, this is a part of that checklist. and I'll answer any questions.
Does anyone have questions? Okay, otherwise, can I get a motion to approve the hand sanitizer opt-out letter for parents and guardians as presented?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now we are on to the principal reports, and we welcome Ms. Laura Monachino from the Early Education Program.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see people in person after such a long time. All right, so I'm going to continue the theme that Mr. Schaefer introduced of safety first, followed by safety, followed shortly after that by safety again. So I'm speaking to the things that with the Abington and Early Education Program that are slightly different than the policies that have just been approved, and giving the reasons for that. In addition, you have in your packet our preschool addendum to the student handbook that will consistently be subject to change as the guidance tells us new things, and we will move from there. Okay, so the first case, I'm looking at mask breaks. And at the pre-K level, students are not required to wear masks. Staff and faculty will be. But we are strongly encouraging our students to wear masks, and we are helping them along with that. We have several social stories written to work with them. We have videos in place. We're going to be offering donning and doffing practice with the students. And we've actually created some great songs. A couple of my staff came up with one today to the tune of something, but it was absolutely lovely. So we're going to be really engaging the students at a developmentally appropriate level in the wearing of masks, and making every effort to normalize it for them and make them feel at ease with wearing the masks as often as possible. We will be offering mask breaks as well. The opportunities for that will be either outdoors, or we have indoor spaces that are demarcated according to the appropriate social distancing requirements, and students will be closely supervised by staff if they are participating in a mask break, particularly if it's during the school day and during the inside period of the day, and it's a self-request on behalf of the student. In regards to lunch, we have 7 students currently who participate in our full-day program that will be staying with us during the lunch period. We have those students divided between 2 classrooms so that we are able to maintain the 6-foot distancing and have them facing the same direction. And we have supervision by the staff following all the health guidance in terms of PPE. With our recess, recess can be considered a mask break with the students' 6-foot social distancing in place. However, if the students are playing on the playground equipment, that will not be a mask break. They will be required to wear masks at that time, and we will find ways to offer those students that have been playing on the playground other opportunities for mask breaks. And the playground will be disinfected every night. In terms of materials drop-off between families and our staff, that exchange will occur at drop-off or dismissal time, and papers will be passed exclusively between the families and our staff members. They will not be transported by children. And the slight differences to our remote code of conduct is we are saying that parent names are acceptable when labeling the windows as opposed to the student's first and last name. We're acknowledging that there might be occasions when a camera will be disabled, and that will be done at the mutual decision between the staff member and the family. And in our case, student work product is not graded, so there will be no change in terms of grading. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Monachino. Quick question. So basically, like reading the very first thing, there is no cohorts per se for the AEP, correct?
There are cohorts according to classrooms, and there is one slightly larger cohort between one of the integrated classrooms and the two separate programs. And the reason for that is that we have students that participate half of the day in the separate program, and the other half of the day they are included in that classroom. So we've made arrangements for all those students to be included in just the one classroom. And in terms of recess and other activities that are going on, the students will maintain those cohorts.
That makes sense. I guess I misspoke. I meant there's no green or wave like there are in the rest of the district, correct?
That is
Okay.
correct. We are a quote-unquote full in-person
Okay.
as opposed to a hybrid model.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Laura, I just had one question. You said, it says here that the start and end times remain unchanged, but then underneath it says the morning program is like 8:20 to 10:40. So those look like different times than the top. Is it that allowing for like?
That is
dismissal
the
and
arrival and dismissal, and we're going to be moving closer and closer to the posted times as we get comfortable with the arrival procedures. We just wanted parents to acknowledge that there would be some transition time. And additionally, we have the need to clean the classrooms between the AM and PM sessions. So we wanted to make sure that we had sufficient time in between those sessions to adequately clean the rooms.
Okay, thanks.
Laura, do you want to talk a little bit about arrival? When we toured the building, and I don't know what conversations have taken place since about being socially distant outside of the entryway and how little
Yes.
ones will be greeted and brought to classrooms, et cetera.
Absolutely, I'm happy to speak to that. We are going to have social distancing lines for our families for drop-off and dismissal, and they are going to be separate lines for each teacher. We hope that that will facilitate the transport of students one at a time down the hall to their classroom. We will have staff in the classroom awaiting the students, and we will have staff at the ready at the door to bring students down to their classrooms. When hand-holding is required, and that's pretty frequent with our crowd, staff will be wearing gloves, that's the word. They will be wearing gloves, and those will be thrown out before interacting with a different student. The same will be true at dismissal time, the difference being that we will have somebody in the vestibule area where drop-off and dismissal will occur, and we'll be utilizing a walkie-talkie system so that as that individual, most likely one of our paras, sees a family arriving, they can make a call down to the classroom, and one of the classroom staff can bring that student to the vestibule for dismissal.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Nope.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Great job. We
Thank
really
you
appreciate
very much,
it.
and again, it's great to see everybody finally.
It's really great to
too.
see you as well. Okay, next up we have Mr. Chris Basta from the Beaverbrook Elementary School to present his student handbook addendum plan.
Good evening, everybody. I agree with everyone who's been up here before. It's weird to not be looking at you, but I do have several notes to read, so I might not be looking at you, so I apologize in advance. I want to start out by thanking the Beaverbrook staff and parents, as well as the entire Abington community for their patience, flexibility, and dedication to our children as we embark on a year like no other. As you are aware already, in order to keep students, staff, and families safe, many changes to our practices and routines have been put in place. Some of these will impact arrival, lunch, recess, breaks, and dismissal on the days when students are in school. I will briefly review these changes now. Please note that all of this information, and lots more, was sent to families in writing today along with class placement, and will be available on our webpage and Facebook page tomorrow. For morning arrivals, parents or caregivers and students must follow local and state health guidelines at all times while on school property. This includes wearing masks and maintaining social distance of at least 6 feet. Drivers will follow the drop-off loop in the rear of the building, as we have in previous years, dropping students off in the red zone with students maintaining social distance as they enter the building under the supervision of staff who will be on the sidewalk as well as in all the hallways. Alternately, parents who choose to may park and walk their students to the red zone, again maintaining social distance and wearing face coverings. Drop-off times, although our school hours are the same as they have been in previous years, 9:05 to 3:05, drop-off times are staggered to control traffic congestion as well as congestion in our hallways so kids can maintain social distance. Grade 2 students would be dropped off at 8:45, grade 1 at 9:05, and grade 2 at 9:15. Kindergarten at 9:15. If any families have multiple students, we ask that they drop off all of their children at the youngest student's arrival time. Buses in the front of the school will unload as they arrive, 1 or 2 buses at a time, so students can maintain social distance as they walk into their classrooms, again, with staff in the hallways and by the main entrance. For families who arrive late, after 9:25 a.m., parents would come to the main entrance and bring students into the office as they have in the past, just they need to have masks on and maintain social distance, and then staff will escort the students to classrooms. Breakfast will be served in the cafeteria beginning at 8:30, with students picking up prepared options and sitting socially distanced as they will during lunch. Students will have multiple mask breaks throughout the day. They will be scheduled 4 times. There will be a morning break, an afternoon break, as well as lunch and recess. In addition to that, teachers and other staff members may schedule additional breaks in pre-identified locations based on the needs of the students in front of them. So if you're a teacher and you're sensing that your kids are really getting itchy with their masks and they really need some time with the mask off, we have identified 13 outdoor locations in addition to our 4 indoor locations where staff would be able to get in an extra break. Lunch, as I said, will take place just like breakfast in both our cafeteria and Gym 1. We have seating for 24 students in the cafeteria sitting 6 feet apart, as well as 65 more students in the gym sitting 6 feet apart. So that is our plan for lunch, and in between lunch shifts, all surfaces will be disinfected. Recess will take place outside in the back of the school as usual, with lunch and recess monitors as well as other school staff monitoring them. Classes will be assigned separate locations. We've identified 4 locations in the back of the school so that classes are not commingling during that recess time. And just like Laura said, during recess, the class that is assigned to the playground will need to keep their mask on, and the playground will be disinfected daily. For early dismissals, advance notice is required by calling the office or emailing one of the office staff members. We just are not able to accommodate people dropping in to conduct a last-minute early dismissal. And also visitors, this is DESE guidelines, visitors to the school are limited to the main office with social distancing and masks required. For dismissal, it's pretty much a mirror image of the morning drop-off routine. Again, social distancing and face masks for anyone who is on campus. But instead of parents driving through, we'll be following our regular protocol of the gates being closed in the back of the school and parents parking, waiting socially distanced for students to come out. Students will be dismissed at staggered times, with grade 2 students going out at 2:30, grade 1 at 2:45, and kindergarten at 3 o'clock. Again, if families have students in multiple grades, we suggest they send an email to each classroom teacher requesting the dismissal time of their youngest child. And then buses will be called 1 or 2 at a time so that kids can maintain social distancing. I think that is it. We will make adjustments to these plans as needed and as required by DESE, but also as we roll them out and we figure out that there are some things we need to tweak, we'll be making those changes, and we'll inform the committee and families when appropriate. Do you have any questions for me?
Dr. Boss, I got one. So it has to do with pickup, and I know you said it's the same kind of setup. Does that mean, are the students going to leave and have to find the car, or can the parents be in the playground area waiting at that time?
Yeah, thank you for helping me clarify if I wasn't clear. So the gates will be closed, parents will park their cars, and parents will come into the paved area behind the building, just like we've done in the
Okay.
past. But when they wait for their kids, they need to be socially distanced.
Gotcha.
And the playground is closed, so kids can't go onto the playground after they've been picked up.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question about the staggered dismissal.
Yeah.
If a parent has a second grader and a child at either Woodsdale or the middle school, is there any flexibility in having their second grader come out of school at 3 o'clock with the kindergarten cohort or not? Like, I'm just thinking about the collision of Woodsdale dismissal and middle school, if you have a second grade child.
Yes, great minds think alike. We started getting emails today and phone calls today after we released information exactly about that point. And so each of us as principals will collaborate with each other to make sure that we're able to accommodate families. And that is our recommendation, that we make it work for them so that they can get between the schools on time.
Thank you. Yeah, pre-pandemic, it was not easy to get to the schools on time, but
Right.
now it's impossible.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just ask, like, what is going to happen if you have grade 2 coming out and then you have to wait 15 or 30 minutes for your kindergartner to come out, or however you said that went, sorry. But, so what are you supposed to do? Just have them sit there? How come they can't play on the
No,
playground for a little bit?
thank you for asking. What we suggest is that parents request that the students come out at the time of the youngest child.
Okay.
So a second grader who has a kindergarten sibling would come out at 3 o'clock with the kindergartner,
Okay.
so that no one would have to wait. Unless there was, for some reason, the parent, because of a Woodsdale or a middle school conflict, they needed to come out earlier than the 3 o'clock, then we would make that change too.
So the child would just wait in the classroom?
Yeah, supervised with school staff, yeah.
Peter, I think this, you can,
Bus students will still be in there.
That's right. But
Oh, okay.
students
Okay.
for the buses will be waiting in the classrooms, being supervised until their bus is called.
All
Thank
right,
you.
that's good.
and Chris, I'm gonna give this one to Peter, because I think it goes beyond your school. I mean, Peter, we've discussed this, so no child is gonna be left alone or unattended
Right.
if a parent is late getting there.
Right, we're all tired of the term "no child left behind," but we're not going to leave them unsupervised or behind if people are having difficulty getting them. And I know the child feels anxious because they're waiting for a ride, and the parent feels anxious. But, I mean, that's what we do, we take care of kids, so please not, don't run red lights or things like that to get there. We'll take care of the kids.
Right, yeah, thank you, Chris. And that is the same as previous years also. If after the last bus is called and there are no more parents waiting to pick students up in the back, a student has not been picked up, a staff member would escort them to the main office where they would sit socially distanced, and we would contact parents.
Please don't take the extra overtime shift to come get your children.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bassa, that was great. And next, we have Jonathan Hawes from the Woodsdale Elementary School to present his addendum with the student handbook.
Hi, all.
Hi.
So, just like Laura and Chris so far, we've got a significant amount, I can't touch it. We've got a significant amount of changes for the upcoming school year. All of them have obviously been consciously planned. It's also been really helpful in the last 10 days or so to have some of our team members at the Woodsdale School to be able to walk through some of these procedures, help us with adjustments, et cetera. So, beginning with arrival at the Woodsdale School, we are feeling that at 8:10 we're going to be opening up our campus for arrival. That is for students that need to be dropped off and for students that are having breakfast in the cafeteria. When they're having breakfast in the cafeteria, they will be obviously supervised and spaced accordingly. One critical piece for parents that are doing drop-off is making sure that you're pulling all the way to the end of the curb. The front entrance at the Woodsdale School has a curb that goes all the way to the end of the bus port, and it's really necessary for all of our parents to pull forward. We'll have our team members out there to make sure that parents are able to get some direction and make sure that they're dropping our kids off, to allow for the most amount of kids to enter given spacing requirements. Similar to the Beaverbrook Elementary School, we're asking parents to coordinate with the front office because we have to make sure that we're coordinating for no drop-in dismissals. It's really important that we connect with our school secretary, Colleen Greenlaw, for that. Regarding health and safety for our students, we want to make sure that our families are supplying a minimum of 3 masks per child. Students will have the opportunity to keep some of those masks either in their backpacks or in their bins in their classroom. As students enter the building each day, we're going to be asking them to sanitize their hands. We've added additional hand sanitizing stations throughout the school. And also, the high-touch areas of our school are going to be cleaned on a regular basis throughout the day. That includes things like handrails, door handles, frequently used areas throughout our building. Regarding lunch, recess, and mask breaks, lunch and snack will take place in our classrooms with the option to eat outside if classrooms choose. Each of our classrooms has been provided with a designated outdoor space that adheres to guidance for spacing. Each of those classrooms can use those spaces at any time of the day that they choose. They choose to do that for their formal mask breaks, which will occur in the morning and in the afternoon, in addition to lunch and recess, they can. If they want to take their reading outside, they can. If they want to take kids for a quick 1-minute spin and sort of collect themselves, they can also do that. So we've got plenty of space at the Woodsdale School campus, and we were happy to be able to acquire a space for each of our classrooms, in addition to some of the spaces throughout our building that meet with smaller groups of students, like our English language learner classrooms and our speech and language classrooms. They all have the option to use one of those outdoor spaces. Lunch will be held in our classrooms. It will be facilitated with the help of lunch and recess staff. We've increased the amount of people that are helping out with that each day. We've also increased the amount of lunches that are taking place. There's 2 at each grade level. So the lunch and recess staff will supervise our students eating inside their classrooms. They will take them outside for recess after they've eaten in their classrooms, and they'll basically run that through again with a 4th grade class. So we're starting with lunches at 11:15 and 11:30 for grades 3, and 12:15 and 12:30 for grades 4. For dismissal, we're going to be dismissing in waves, similar to Beaverbrook Elementary. The dismissal waves at the Woodsdale School will take place by classroom, and the parents that received information today, either on our Facebook page, on Constant Contact, or in the placement letter that went home via email, can see the dismissal structure. We're starting with 3rd grade classrooms upstairs and moving through a progression spaced out about 5 minutes at a time. We feel that confidently allots enough time to have our students walk through the hallways with spacing. At dismissal, we'll all have adults in the hallways monitoring that spacing as well, and will allow enough time for our students, which is approximately no more than 45 students at a time exiting the building. The last of our dismissal waves will be the buses. So there will be students similar to Beaverbrook Elementary School in the classrooms waiting for their buses. For students that are being picked up by car, another ask of our parent population is as the students are coming out of the building, we're going to be making sure that they themselves are spacing out on the sidewalk if they choose to wait there for their students. Another important piece is for them to collect their students quickly so that we can clear the campus of cars. There's one way in and one way out, so it can become a traffic nightmare if we all can't participate in that. Anybody have any questions?
Jonathan, I had one quick one. You mentioned in the beginning drop off at 8:10.
For students that are having breakfast, you can
Okay.
start dropping off at 8:10. For students that are arriving for their day, they can begin starting at 8:20.
Okay, thank you. That was the key
Yeah.
part I was missing.
So
Thank you.
We've got some, same thing as AEP, we've got some distance lines out there. We'll have some staff helping kids make sure that they're distanced. They'll be sanitizing their hands and welcomes into our school.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I just want to say that the third and fourth graders are really lucky to have all that additional space to be able to go outside as often for their classroom. So that's great. Thank you for that. So next up, we have Mr. Matt McCurtain to give us the middle school handbook protocols addendum. Thank you.
Good evening. It's good to see you all in person again. Much of what I'm going to say is going to mirror what the principals that have come up before me have said. I want to mirror what Mr. Barsta said, Dr. Barsta said, and thank the community that we have here, both the administrative team, the staff, and the community at large for their support and their patience as we develop these plans that we hope will keep our students safe as they enter the 2020-21 school year. So as far as health and safety at Abington Middle School, first and foremost, we want to make sure that our parents and the community and teachers and staff are checking for symptoms daily and staying home if they are symptomatic. Those will be excused absences for our students with a doctor's note or a parent note. Mask wearing, hand washing, and sanitization are key factors in making sure our community is as safe as possible. To that end, hand sanitization stations have been added throughout the building and in each classroom. Sinks are in all of our bathrooms and also occur in our PBLL spaces. We intend to have monitors in our hallways for bathrooms and hallway use, and distancing marks for students to wait while entering spaces. Our students may bring a water bottle to fill and have in class. Refilling stations are operational, water fountains will not be. Frequent cleaning and sanitization of high-touch surfaces will be happening throughout the day, as Mr. Hawes described at Woodsdale. For student life at Abington Middle School, there will be some changes due to COVID. First, the building will be opening at 7:35 for student access. That is a change. That is the start of our student day, start of our staff day. At 7:35, students may enter either door 10, which is back behind us by the tennis courts. Other options for entering include the front door, where you can be dropped off by the walkways at Glenowitz Way, and some students have chosen, and families have chosen to use the Abington Public Library lot and enter through Riley Field. Students will go directly to homerooms, not to the cafeterias in years past. Students will be in homeroom until the start of the student day. And it's just a reminder, teachers will be traveling between classrooms. Students remain in their homerooms, in homeroom cohorts that we will refer to as platoons, in order to avoid confusion between cohorts, meaning green and wave. Student movement for classes is limited with a few exceptions. Accelerated math students in grades 7 and 8 will be moving between classrooms. Some Spanish students will move between classrooms. Students receiving services outside of the general education setting will be moving through classrooms, and PE classes will be held outside at every opportunity possible. Students at Abington Middle School will have lunch and mass breaks. There'll be 2 mass breaks daily. Mass breaks will be held in the morning and the afternoon, with the morning mass break available for student snacks. Whenever possible, these will be held outdoors. Outdoor mass breaks will take place in the tennis courts and in areas in front of the building, including on the grass and the front walkway, and students will be spaced minimally 6 feet apart. Indoor mass breaks will be held in the project-based learning labs, the seminar room, and the cafeteria. Student dismissal will mirror student arrival and is likely to start a few minutes earlier than our 2:22 student day end. Parent pickup options, it will again be door 10, the areas outside Glenowitz Way, and if they choose, the Abington Public Library parking lot. It's likely that the door 10 line will extend around the building, and we ask for patience as parents pick students up there. There will be social distancing lines outside door 10 for students to wait for parents. Buses will be dismissed by bus number, which is different. In the past, we would dismiss all students at Abington Middle School at the same time. In order to maintain distancing and appropriate spacing for students, we will be regimenting that as we move forward. I did want to talk a little bit about student transition tonight. So we have grade 5 students that have not had the opportunity to visit our building. That is not how we would prefer to do it, but it is in accordance with the governor's orders. What we will be doing is providing a video grid using Flipgrid of teachers and spaces within the building for students to access prior to student arrival. So our students will be able to go online and they'll be able to click on individual videos that will introduce them to staff members, introduce them to portions of the building, and introduce them to offices, hallways, learning spaces, and campus. This will be available for grade 5 students, but also replicated for grade 6 and 7 and 8 students. Do we have any questions?
Matt, how will that be communicated to, just email?
Yep, we'll send it out in constant contact. We'll place it on our Facebook page, every available communication platform.
So obviously, it's a disadvantage because you can't be there in person with your child and walk through the building, and that's really what the problem is in terms of bringing people into the building during COVID. We've got these allowances for schools to be open, but not for larger gatherings with parents coming with kids and following the guidelines that we have. It's not even a silver lining, can I call it a gray lining? That as a 5th grader with the Flipgrid concept, you can access that whenever you want and as many times as you want, rather than that tour that if you couldn't make it or you see something once and you miss it, there's so much information that comes at you when you're new to something that you miss even information that's been provided to you in a clear and concrete way. But with this, you can, if you are nervous about this aspect or that aspect, you can review it, several times. So
It's on demand and constantly available.
it's not a silver lining, it's a gray lining, but it is one of the minor benefits of doing it this way.
We had a family come to us this afternoon who had heard of the high school walkthrough today. This is just for an example. That family was 4 people strong, and it was great to see that they wanted to see the inside of our building. If that was what we could do for all of our students, we'd be looking at bringing in 450 to 600 people for a walkthrough. It's just unfortunately not possible.
The other piece I should probably mention, and it doesn't really have to do with the middle school or the high school, but in a way it does, is that the library will not be available for a waiting area for people. The library is not, the public library here is not available for people to take advantage of after school. I know a lot of our students used to be able to go there and wait for rides in the building or spend time there. That's not an option this time.
Matt, when will that Flipgrid be available or be sent out?
Those are being created as we speak and will be available Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Do you have any good jokes?
Not that I can tell on cable.
Any other questions? I guess that's it, Matt. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Jonathan Bourne from the high school to introduce his student handbook addendum.
Thank you and good evening. Just for a couple pieces of housekeeping for the information you have in front of you, and I apologize for these changes. I did send them along to Superintendent Schaefer, Dr. Michelle, and Teresa Minahan this evening. On your copy that was provided to you on Monday, there's an additional bullet point that needs to be added on page 6 under lunch, recess, and mass breaks. I'll read it to you, but Teresa Minahan does have it for the record, just for your own clarity. Food will not be permitted in classrooms. Students are strongly encouraged to eat all food, especially breakfast, before entering the building. We are urging parents for your cooperation in this matter. I'll explain more about this when I get into more kind of a discussion about student life. And additionally, on that same page 6, the next section, arrivals, pickups, and drop-offs. The first line should read, "For arrival, please drop off students between the turf fields and gymnasium entrance." That last correction was included in my email to parents tonight, alerting them that the student schedules are available through Aspen and an attachment of the document you have in front of you. My apologies for those oversights. Part of that was related to the condensed timeline that I typically like to operate, which would be department heads, and credit to Lisa Augusta and school council members for catching some of those misses this afternoon, so I appreciate that.
Jonathan, the first correction, what page did you say it was on?
I didn't paginate for you, but it would be my page 6, where it says lunch, recess, and mass breaks is the section heading.
Okay, thank
There's an
you.
entire bullet missing at the end of that, when I'd like to add that language I mentioned.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, you'll hear a lot of the same information. I do really appreciate the close collaboration I've had with the other principals and leadership in the district to make sure we are as similar as possible. There are certain facets of high school life that, as we could imagine, given the age of our students, might be slightly different. One of the things, and it's been said, but I want to make it clear for our high school students and parents, that all students and staff need to be wearing masks coming to school. That should be known. I do think we have encountered some of our adolescents in public and elsewhere not wearing masks. It will be something that will be a clear expectation set by me and the staff at the school. And we certainly aim to work with students to achieve that very significant and important cultural and lifestyle shift at the high school. For Abington High School, no entry to the building will be allowed before 7:10. That is a shift as well, similar to what Mr. McCurtain mentioned. That's the beginning of our teacher contractual day. Students that do enter the building at 7:10 or after should report immediately to their first period class that day. One thing that we are asking the community for a tremendous amount of help in, and this was foreshadowed by the language I just read to you, is we need parent and student help to not bring breakfast and food into the building. This is an acculturated part of high school life to stop by Dunkin' Donuts or Mary Lou's on your way into the building. As I just read to you, we will not be able to allow food in the classroom. It just creates compounding layers of complexity with mask distance, cleaning, hand washing. So we are imploring and asking that students have their breakfast eaten before they enter into the building. That would be a tremendous help for us and allow us to focus on other very important things. Student lockers will not be available to students while we're in the hybrid model, and that is pursuant to DESE guidance to avoid crowding in the hallways. We have recently purchased and trained staff on software called eHall Pass to limit and regulate student passes and students in the hall during class time. This is something that students will encounter as new, probably a nuisance, but I will tell you it is widely very well received by the staff as being able to solve and manage some very complicated problems that we would have been difficult to control. How do we control the number of students going to the bathroom, the maximum capacity in each bathroom, and this helps allow that. An ancillary benefit is it also makes it very difficult, or more difficult, for students to vape in the bathroom. That even in the midst of this pandemic was a clear piece of feedback I got from students and staff and parents through my entry planning as a problem. Students will be scheduled into mass breaks in each of their periods during the day. Those will be done preferably outside. The only exception will be the lunch period, where the students have a natural mass break built in while they're at lunch. Students will have assigned seating in class and at lunch. That will be new. That is something we're going to help and hope parents can communicate to their children, that they're going to be excited to see their friends. We are not going to be able to allow lunch to be the social time it usually is. That's regrettable, but I think the theme we have is that this isn't ideal, but the best that we can do. Academically, we will be offering letter or numeric grades for our academic quarters. I know for a lot of the parent experience, it was a credit, no credit experience when the remote education was in place. We are committed to doing letter or numeric grades for all our classes, quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4, calculating GPA class rank. That will be consistent, or at least the expectation for grades will carry through hybrid or remote. Credit loss has been removed for our attendance policy, similar to what Mr. McCurtain said. We want to encourage safety by having 6 students stay home. Additional flexibility in makeup work and remote check-ins, such as the bridge block, will help bridge any gaps that students have to miss in-person learning experiences. And students, another facet that's changed, they also must check in on their remote days. So students need to check in by 9 a.m. on Wednesday as part of their mentor group for the whole school remote learning. That will be a whole school activity. And then for 7:30 a.m. for their period 1 and period 5 days on their off days. Parent drop-offs. Parent visitor access is going to be limited to the vestibule. We do have some technology that allows us to talk to parents through our telecommunication devices. And again, we are also asking parents for your distinct cooperation to not drop off food for students, Wendy's, McDonald's, what have you. We have the capacity to give them a school lunch. It'll just really help us focus on some of the other matters. If a student leaves a laptop or a set of glasses behind, something necessary to learning, obviously we're going to help that happen. Dismissal will be slightly staggered at the high school, but it won't be structured at the same level as the other schools. We will be dismissing by areas of the building just to make it as orderly as possible, so it is not one bell and 300 students exiting at the same time. And the pickup leaving routines of high school students are far less regulated than the other ages. Parents have asked about school supplies. We asked each student to bring a mask and a fully charged laptop and charging cord and positive attitude, and we'll take it from there. That is, in a nutshell, some of the lifestyle changes, the big lifestyle changes we have at the high school. And as has been said by my colleagues, as we learn more and put this into play, if we need to retack and change our approach, we are definitely open to doing that.
Excellent, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I just have a logistical question from a person with a small stomach that eats often. So this is going to be a lifestyle change, the bit about not being able to stroll in with your coffee and your food, because we talked about this on the tour, how, and Sarah LaPointe was there, and from a nurse's perspective, and said, you know, the reality is high school students, some of them don't want to eat early, but like that's going to have to be something that we start to do, is to eat, because the first lunch, if you're at first lunch, it happens at 10:30, and then it looks like about midway through our school day. My question is, it says lunch as well as snack will take place. Like, is there really a snack time?
There isn't, and I apologize. That's a carryover from
Okay.
some of the other things. Yeah, we won't be in a position to allow snack, like a formal snack break like the other schools.
Okay, I just was checking because you didn't mention it as a place that they were going to get a mask break, so I figured they probably weren't getting a snack. So hear that, everybody at high school, no snacks. So you really want to eat breakfast in your car before you come, because you will only be allowed to eat at your lunchtime and then at dismissal, like
Thank you.
once you've left us, right?
Yes, we are of the opinion that if we allow snacks, we're functionally allowing food in the building. So
Yep.
we really can't allow snacks.
And the mask would have to come off, and then that creates
Correct.
a
And
problem.
it creates layers of cleaning, hand washing for the student, cleaning of the desk, supervision, time without a mask in front of other staff and students.
Do I dare ask the question, if people do bring in their normal breakfast, what will happen?
Right, we're not monsters, but at the same time, we will be very clear about why we have these new strict policies. Ms. Clements, the new assistant principal, and I have already talked about how we will address those as best as possible on a case-by-case basis. This is where we need parents to make those case-by-case bases as few as possible, because we want to build a bridge and a connection with our students and parents. We understand the importance of breakfast. We understand that some students' routines are to go to fast food places for breakfast, and we don't want to deny them that food, but we just can't allow the status quo from last year to continue. So we will meet with the students, talk with them, have a conversation, reach out to their families, and try to create solutions for them that breakfast is solved, so to speak, before they enter the building.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Jonathan, I know I had talked to you earlier on our school council meeting, but I know one of the things was I had asked, but maybe just worth repeating while we're here, is about the students changing classrooms in between classes and how the hallways will work and the stairwells, and if you want to maybe speak to that.
Sure, thank you. Based on the layout of our building and having the preschool underneath our second floors, we're really unable to do one-way hallways. We'll create log jams of kids being stuck in the history wing. Worst places to be stuck, in my opinion. But so what we are going to do is similar to what Mr. McCurtain is, a tight to the right approach, very much like streets. Kids are going to have a way to learn rotaries with our rotunda and how to merge into traffic and things of that nature. We are creating only one pair of down and up stairwells. The longer cascading stairwell that goes into the CAF will be down, one right around the corner that is up, just to help minimize some traffic flow and congestion in tight stairwells. The stairwell, if I'm pointing in the right spot by the math classrooms, will be two-way, just because we don't have a way to funnel all the traffic that way. And we'll lay down arrows on the hallway to guide students to that tight to the right kind of formation.
Sounds great.
I have one other question.
Sure.
So in the other schools, students won't be changing classes, but in high school they are. So how does it work as far as one group of students leave the classroom? Like, what happens to the desks? Are they sanitized? Who cleans them? What's going to happen before the next group of kids come into that classroom?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that honestly has been a process that we've talked about at great length this summer. Superintendent Schaefer, I'm happy to do that unless you think I get this wrong. Our plan right now is that as the students leave to transition out of the class, the teachers will spray down the desks and any materials they might have touched. The arriving students will then clean off or help clean off those desks so they're coming into a fresh, sanitized setting in each transition.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, that was a great job.
Wendy, do you mind if I just ask, it's a question more for Peter, probably just before we move on to the next thing, because it kind of encompasses all of them, and since I couldn't have them come back up. Peter, I guess it's two-part. One, a lot of these documents had, look like very helpful links available on them. Will these all be available on the specific school's website pages for people to be able to access?
They will be, and in terms of creating this agenda tonight, we had to PDF a lot of the information, so those links didn't work if people went to the agenda for tonight, but all those links actually do work. And as people are pushing these out in emails, they work in the emails, and then they'll be, unfortunately, we're developing this giant library of COVID things on the website that will continue to be there and work.
Okay, great. And I guess the last one, and I know, so I'm speaking for just a lot of things I've heard, and Canvas is going to be a big use. And in terms of, it probably, it's more of it starts more heavy in the elementary in terms of trying to, but in terms of like giving parental guidance on how to work with that, what's the plan on rolling that up to
So
parents?
appreciate the question, because it's something that's been asked and something that we've worked on. There are going to be videos available to people that are sort of tutorial videos. So you can have your cell phone, you can watch the tutorial video, and then you can take the laptop and then learn all of the functions of the different technologies that our students are going to be using as a parent.
Great. Do you know when students or parents can access maybe start to see stuff for their new classroom? I know teacher assignments went out today. Maybe they start to see things on there. Do you know if there's a time frame for that? I'm assuming before Wednesday, but.
Canvas opens on the 16th.
Thanks, Rich.
What about those parent videos? Will those be available prior to the 16th?
They hopefully will be ready sometime next week, beginning of the week.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Wendy.
We want them to be referenced in the orientation videos, so that they're just highlighted. They're not, not probably, people can go over whenever they want, but just referenced in those orientation videos.
Rich, is there an easy way for parents of like kindergarten and first graders? Is there like an 8x10, like follow these steps and you get into Canvas type thing? And so, And so we think that those directions will be available before the kids need to log. No, Great Wave is logging in on the 16th.
So I'll repeat what Rich said so that people can hear it at home. You bet. The answer was yes, there will be step-by-step instructions. There will also be those videos, and we hope that that information is available next week to people.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Of course. Any other questions? On behalf of the school committee, I'd just like to thank all of you, the principals, vice principals, secretaries. I know on top of your usual prepping for back to school, this is a lot's been asked of you, and we really appreciate all the time that you guys have spent on your addendums and creating locations and mass break locations and extra lunch locations. So thank you for everything you've all done. I know it's been very difficult. So next on the agenda is the consideration of a memorandum of agreement with the Abington Education Association. And Peter will be taking this portion.
So I just want to sort of preface this. Each of the committee members has the full document. It's about 55 pages long, and it was quite a bit to put together. And all of the information that the community has heard tonight really feeds into this document. I'm certainly going to answer people's questions about the document. We can talk about the document, but rather than doing a presentation on the document, you've heard the different policies, procedures, and all of the different processes that are going to take place as a result of the document. So those things that people are going to touch and feel in terms of the experience, they're part of this document, and you've heard about that tonight, and that's why this was laid out that way. I need to thank a number of people, and I want to make a point at the end of this, and I'll make it very quick, and I'll try to be very clear about it. I want to start by thanking both Jackie and Wendy for working with us all summer on this. This took more hours and times out of their life that they will never get back than any of us want to even think about, and they were there and supportive and put a lot of work into it. I want to thank the Abington Education Association leadership, Steve Shannon and Steve Moore, and the entire team that worked all summer on this with us. There was a lot of work, obviously. I've communicated that. We basically had to take multiple documents from the CDC, the DPH, and DESE, and we've spent a lot, you know what those are, we've talked about them. And then we had to take the Abington contract, like all systems in Massachusetts, and put all of those together during a pandemic to bring kids back safely, to have staff be safe in our buildings, because we have a responsibility to them and the community at large in terms of keeping people safe. So this was no small task, and it's with great appreciation. Also to the faculty and the staff who, when they came in over the last 2 weeks, helped us because they are talented and gifted, and I heard some things here tonight. This feels awful for people, but you heard Laura Monachino talk about a song that kids would sing to be able to normalize the wearing of masks. Who ever thought we were going to be wearing masks and we would be going through this as a society? These people care deeply about kids, and they are killing themselves because they work for kids. And I am so proud of the entire faculty, staff, and administrative team and our school committee who has deliberated long and hard over these things, because we all, these are my words, we work for kids. We get up in the morning and we work for kids. That's what, even in a pandemic, drives us. People have just been incredible with their time and their energy and their thought and being meticulous and detail-oriented. And when I say faculty, staff, and administration, I am including all of our administrative assistants and custodial and cafeteria our paraprofessionals, our tutors, our teachers, our administrators, I mean, our maintenance, the technology office, it blows us away every single day. And as I look at this group of people in the auditorium and the team that we have, I'm so personally thankful, but I know they do it for kids. They don't do it for any other reason, because who in their right mind would do this for any other reason? So I apologize, I'll get off my soapbox, I need to say those things. I'm gonna have to ask our parents to please be patient. Our kids are resilient. We don't wanna ask too much of them, and so we're gonna take this very slowly and very safely. So people are very concerned right now about the orientation. Our kiddos haven't been in school for 5 months, for 6 months, by the time next week rolls around. The entire start of school for days and days and days, or weeks, as long as it takes, is going to be an orientation to what we have to do for kids. Nobody's going to imagine that they've got to learn their fractions and get them right and do math facts all day on Wednesday when we come back. So please don't let yourselves be stressed about that. And help us when you're sending your kids to us to assure them that we're going to take care of them. They look to our parents, they look to their parents, they look to their families for safety and security. And if you're nervous, they're going to be nervous. And it's going to make it harder on them to come back and transition back to more of a routine. So as much help you could give us in building confidence in them that they're going to be okay, that we're going to take care of them, I would appreciate. And I promise I'll get off the soapbox. The agreement that you have in front of you, the tentative agreement you have in front of you is going to be considered by the association membership in the coming days. They have not voted this yet. We're bringing this to you first. I want to answer any questions that you have about it. But we've talked quite a bit about it, and like I said, the details you heard tonight are born out of this document. So I don't think I'm shorting anyone on information by not going through it, the 55 pages, page by page. So.
I agree. Anybody have any questions? We have had 2 executive meetings to discuss the MOA document, so the school committee, the rest of the school committee besides Jackie and I have definitely been updated on all the information, so if there aren't any questions, I'd like to see if someone would like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Abington School Committee and the Abington Education Association as presented.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item I have for the committee is a consideration of an amended calendar for the 2021 school year. So this calendar that you have in front of you, there are really 2 changes to highlight to you. We moved the professional development days to Wednesdays, and prior to the December break and the Thanksgiving break, we're giving the Tuesdays of those 2 weeks to the WAVE cohort rather than the green cohort. The reason for that is because we have 2 things going on with days. If we left it the way that it is now, the green cohort would have 3 more days of in-person school. So by giving 2 to the WAVE, we come as close as we can in terms of equal numbers. We'll have 68 days for the green and 69 days for the WAVE. The other reason to make this move is if we don't do this, on those holiday weeks, the WAVE students wouldn't come to school for such an extended period of time. For example, in the December break, they wouldn't come to school for 2 weeks. And they would miss a full week in the November schedule. So this at least gives them a day during those, prior to those holiday periods where they're in person. So that was the rationale behind the change, and I'll answer any questions people might have.
Pete, I don't really have a question. It's more just for clarity when people are trying to look at it. Maybe, as Ms. Monachino mentioned, there are no green or WAVE cohorts in pre-K. So maybe just change that to say K through 12 if somebody goes to access it. online and they get confused. Like if you look at September 16th and 17th, it says pre-K through 12 green code.
Yep, good point, thank you.
Any of those green or blue highlights, it appears.
Thank you.
I just had one other question about the tentative last day of school, June 17th. We usually do the whole bit about this includes 5 snow days. Like,
Yeah.
is a snow day a thing anymore? Like, are we going to do snow days?
That's a great question. I don't think we are, but I don't know for sure.
So does the 17th represent the traditional 5 days built in, or does the 17th take us to the max? What's the new max?
This represents 172 days of school.
So this is a little bit of a difference. Like, usually when I get this calendar, I subtract. Is that right? Like, do we usually don't?
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Yeah. So just for parents, like, who are looking at this, we usually go back and subtract, like, hopefully we don't have snow days.
Yeah, I believe that this is going to, I think people should plan that this would be the last day of school.
Okay.
I think the original said that. I think the original had like the 24th included 5 days of snow days or whatever, so.
Because feasibly, if we can't get out of our houses for snow, we can, this is the great news in 2020, that we can just log on.
So my understanding from the commissioner is that he is anticipating that that will be the case. They just haven't come up with the official guidance. That
Snow day.
snow days will count as, or remote, could be remote days.
We'll anxiously await that information.
There's not going to be any snow.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions? So would anyone like to make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school calendar as amended?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Great. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. And I just wanted to see if Felicia might be able to speak a little bit about the buildings, HVAC systems, lunch, and buses.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
So in our quest for safety, one of the things that we did was we procured the services of a third-party engineering company to come and evaluate the HVAC systems at the Beaverbrook, Woodsdale, and 201. Horizon Engineering is the company that did the commissioning of this building when we opened it, so they were very familiar with this building and became very familiar with the Woodsdale and the Beaverbrook. I'm happy to report that their evaluations were very positive. The preventative maintenance that occurs in any year by our maintenance department of Jason Lynn and Lance Hammonds has kept those significantly older buildings in good shape. That being said, there are always recommendations when you have people come in and evaluate your system, and there were recommendations that were made for all 3 buildings. In the course of the last week and continuing through this weekend, we have brought in both outside vendors that we do work with, and Jason and Lynn have gone through the punch list of all the recommendations that have been made, and I'm very confident that by Tuesday afternoon, all of the recommendations that have to do with our HVAC systems, airflow rates will be corrected. So, I was asked, are our buildings safe for our students and faculties to be in? And at this time, I can confidently report that our systems are working as designed, and they're moving air through the systems. Are there any questions on that?
No, that's great news though, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. So I think it was earlier this week, this is about our breakfast and lunch program. Earlier this week, the USDA, who sponsors the free and reduced lunch programs for the United States, provided a waiver for the state of Massachusetts to continue to provide free meals to our student-age population through December 31st. And that was similar to what had happened, that had expired in September. It's what we had since April. So what that means is any student in Abington, any child of school age is eligible for a free lunch and breakfast, regardless of your income. So if you have a child who you would like for them to get lunch at school, they can get a free lunch. Bernie Darcy, the food service director, will be sending out a constant contact tomorrow. The memo will also be on our website, in the food service section of our website, describing how the breakfast and lunch program is going to work. It's going to be a little different at each school, but there will be breakfast and lunch provided. For those students who are learning remotely in the hybrid model or virtually are also eligible to get meals, and we'll be doing meal pickup as we did throughout the summer, and it'll be at different sites on different days. For example, if you are in the green cohort and you want to pick up a meal or meals, you'll be eligible to come on Monday, and we'll have 4 breakfasts and 3 lunches for you. So breakfast for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and lunches for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And there'll be a lot more information in that constant contact that goes out tomorrow and the website. But just to reiterate, any student can get a lunch. Any student can get a breakfast. So please take advantage of that. That has been extended now through December 31st. Massachusetts, along with a number of other states, have asked the USDA to extend it through the school year. So as we get more information on that, we'll let you know.
Felicia, can I just ask a quick question about lunches at 201 here, Glenowitz? The fun cafeteria lunches, like the hot lunches, are not open, right? It's just grab and go cold?
It's going to be actually grab and go hot or cold.
Okay,
There'll be one hot option, one cold option. But it won't be, the meals will be spread out in different areas. You won't be able to get the parfait and the make your own Subway sub. But there'll be 2 options. And I believe that the 2 options, like I said, there'll be some tables set up in hallways, so that students aren't bunched up to get their meals.
thank you.
So do you know why we call it 201, or I refer to it as 201?
No, but when you say it, which always makes me laugh, I wonder if everyone who listens, I didn't know that Abington Middle High School is located at 201 Glenowitz Way. Like, it took me a while to catch on to that lingo.
So when we first were talking about the building, building the building, and moving into the building, we kept on referring it to as the new building. The new building, and I said, at some point, it's not going to be the new building anymore. So let's refer to the complex, I don't know if I said it, but let's refer to the complex as 201. So that would encompass the preschool, the middle, and the high school as a building.
You can get credit for that one, Felicia.
Nice job,
job.
Felicia.
At my retirement party.
We'll get you a little sign.
Yeah, punch list.
Yep. And my last update is on busing. So I have to thank our transportation people that worked diligently this summer. Colleen Greenlaw is probably right now printing out bus tags and putting them on plastic tags. It's been a challenge. And if you remember from the guidance from DESE, 23 students max on a 71-passenger bus. So throughout the summer, Marianne Offstein, Gail, they called every family that is mandated for transportation to find out if they wanted a seat on the bus. So we had that. Then we had the parents that paid for the bus. We had families that paid for the bus. We sent out, as we do every summer, reminders that if you want a bus, you have to come and provide us your bus application and payment. So then we had that. Then we had the cohorts. So we had to split the students into the cohorts and buses, and then we had cohort request changes, so we actually couldn't even start the routing until the end of last week. So I thank people for their patience. I can tell you that bus tags are going out in the mail tomorrow. Any families that have signed up this week, or the last couple of weeks actually, they've been put on a waiting list, because we really needed to focus on those families that are mandated or had paid earlier in the summer. And one thing that is really important to understand, unlike any other year, is you will not be allowed on the bus unless you have a bus tag.
And a mask.
And a mask.
Yeah.
We will have masks, but you'll have to wear a mask. There'll be assigned seats on the bus. The first stops are in the back of the bus, and as the route continues through, the last pickup will be the closest to the front. We are going to put kindergarten students in the front of the buses. But students will not be allowed on the bus if they do not have a bus tag. And that's because we have assigned seats and we can only have 23 students on a bus. And those families that are on waiting lists, you can anticipate towards the end of next week, you'll hear whether we're able to accommodate your ridership. Are there any questions?
Felicia, were you able to do it where we don't have to have, I know as part of the conversation between hybrid or full in-person, there was the delays. Are we able to do it with the normal bus capacity for each school?
Yes, as of right now, that's where we're at. We've actually, quite honestly, we need a few less buses for the Beaverbrook and the Woodsdale as of right now. I haven't released that bus equipment yet back to the bus company because I am a little bit, once you release it, you don't get it back. Like, they send them to other communities and the drivers. So I haven't released them yet because I want to see how the first couple of weeks play out and whether we have additional people sign up for the bus. Okay. But that does remind me of one other piece, and this is in anticipation of Wednesday. There are significantly less people traveling on buses, which means significantly more people driving to our schools. What none of us really can imagine, I don't think, is what our population is going to be like with about 60% less students. So we're going to have about 40% of our population. Take out the virtual school students, and then you have the two cohorts. I do believe traffic is going to be an issue around town. I do believe there'll be backups out onto Washington Street at the Beaverbrook, Chestnut Street at the Woodsdale. Please be patient, please be careful. We are working very closely with the Abington Police Department. They will be around to be helping with whatever traffic issues we may have. I do believe that the staggered drop-offs at the Woodsdale and the Beaverbrook will help. But please be patient, please be careful, and we will work it all out.
I just want to thank you, Felicia. This is like a logistical nightmare that is your real life. I can't even, in a given normal year, it's stressful to accommodate the buses and late in the summer changes. And I just can't even wrap my head around how much work this is, and it will be. So thank you.
Thank you. And I really do need to say that we have an amazing team in Abington. And, some days it doesn't feel like we're doing enough and doing enough quickly enough. But from our custodians to our people in transportation, our maintenance crew, our administrators, our superintendent, who, we never gets pat on the back, but the people have worked very hard and all summer, and I would need to thank all of them. Thanks.
I agree. Awesome. Thank you so much, Felicia. We appreciate that update. So, right now, that pretty much concludes the school committee meeting, except for we have a few
We have the
dates to remember.
homeschool-
Do we have more things?
We have a homeschool request, and then if I could, I have a couple of quick informational things.
Oh, that's what I was going to talk about right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but
Sorry.
yeah, but not the homeschool, so go right ahead.
Okay. I'd like, at the beginning of the meeting, Mrs. Minahan passed out to you a memo from Dr. Robbins. We have 5 homeschool requests with you now. I'd like to ask if you would consider those for us, please, tonight.
Yes, so would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, and I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then a few of the dates to remember that we have is Wednesday, September 16th, the first day of school for students. Hybrid green cohort in person, and wave cohort will be remote. Thursday, September 17th, the hybrid wave cohort will be in person and the green cohort will be remote. Friday, September 18th, all students will be remote. Monday and Tuesday, September 21st and 22nd, the hybrid green cohort is in person, and Wednesday, September 23rd, all hybrid students will be remote. Thursday and Friday, September 24th and 25th, hybrid wave cohort will be in person, and Monday, October 12th, is Columbus Day, so all school buildings and offices will be closed. So that is the end of our meeting tonight.
Could I just do a couple of informational
Oh,
things?
yeah,
Is that
go right
okay?
ahead.
I promise I'll keep them quick.
No, you.
Thank you. Just two quick things. I wanted to make sure people are aware we still have a number of challenges, not the least of which is we have 500 computers that we want to distribute to families in Abington. We did, and when I say we, I mean our tech department, but I promise Rich will help you with anything that we can, no matter what it takes. We had people make a request for a device for their home and then a second device for their home. We also have grade 7, I believe, that needs computers. And so that's one of the things on the horizon. I want to just spend a second talking about the Secondary Virtual Academy and not describe it to you tonight because a very detailed email has gone out to those secondary families that have opted for the virtual academy. I just wanted to explain to the committee and the community the circumstances behind the last-minute switch to TECA. Everyone, even our teachers, wanted our virtual academy to be at the secondary level. Now, I don't want to confuse things. K through 6 are still Abington teachers, but 7 through 12 we had to switch to a company called TECA, an organization called TECA, which is a Massachusetts public school online program. We had to make that switch because in the late switch, we didn't get the information from DESE in terms of what the online options would be until about the 3rd week in August. We immediately began to negotiate it. Everyone, our teachers, our families, the administration wanted it to be run by our teachers. What happened was we came up with a platform, we had an agreement on it, we published it, we posted it to our teachers, and to be quite honest with you, our teachers are so involved in doing the best job that they can with this new hybrid model, where it has both in-person and remote, that it was difficult to find faculty who wanted to take on the extra responsibility of teaching an extra class at the secondary level. We did find some. We went back to the drawing board. We tried to make it something that was they were more able to do, and we took actually 2 more shots at it, and we got some more people, but there were 35 sections to cover. In math alone, I believe there are 8 different offerings between the middle school and the high school. If I'm off, it's 7. From math, science, English, social studies, and foreign language, we just could not cover what needed to be covered in the program of studies for our secondary students with the faculty that we have. We thought about and tried to think about bridging this with another district. That didn't work because of the requirements that we have around our own. Everybody has their own requirements around technology and how those technologies are used. We couldn't blend those together with different teachers from different districts. So we had to make the move to TECA because it's the best decision for kids. It offers the most comprehensive and competitive program of studies available for our kids. These are our high school students. We have middle school students in this mix too, but moreover, our high school students who are applying to colleges. We need to have a competitive and thoughtful program of studies for them, even in a pandemic. And we just didn't have the staff to cover it. We tried, and no good deed sometimes goes unpunished. Because of those efforts and because of us trying so hard to make it work, it delayed us doing what basically other districts had already done. They'd gone to these online versions. So I want to apologize to people for this change, but that was why we made the change. It is still the best decision for our kids of all of the options that we have. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit tonight, and I appreciate you gave me the chance to do that.
Peter, can I just say something with that? I just wanted to clarify, to make sure that everybody's aware that the virtual program at the high school would have required teachers to not only do their regular job, but to then take on additional classes.
Correct.
Just an extraordinary amount of work.
No, thank you. Those teachers are focused on doing a good job for the kids that we have in the hybrid model, and the extra responsibilities, they just want to do it right. And so this is a better opportunity for our kids. And I want to thank Abington Cable for everybody being here to help us film this tonight, and then I really think I'm done.
Anyone else? I'm sorry, I
I
didn't
mean,
mean to
Wendy,
take
I'm just
anything
gonna-
away from the virtual
Yeah, I'm just
academy.
going to piggyback off what you guys said from the beginning, too. I think thank you to everybody who's made this work. Thank you to you and Jackie for the, being on the subcommittee, giving up hours and hours of the summer. Thank you to all the staff, administration, for everything they've done, so.
Yeah, everybody's been really
Excited for 6 days from now.
And then we do have a discussion that we have to do for the next school committee meeting, but would you like to do it now, or?
However the committee wants to handle that.
Okay, do you want to do it now? No?
I mean, I don't know, do we have enough information? I
So
mean,
one of the things that might happen is I may need to come to you and have another, meeting over the next couple of weeks.
like the original calendar had a meeting on September 1st and then September 22nd. I mean, I guess, so,
Okay, why don't we wait and talk about it?
Is
so
that okay?
you-
yeah,
So
that's
we
fine.
can.
Yeah.
Then maybe try to get more on the schedule. We'll
Perfect.
see.
Yep, we definitely want to get back onto a regular schedule. It's just
Right.
that so many things come up.
Yep, makes sense. All right, so if that's it, I'd like to say thank you to Matt Lyons and Abington Kim as well. And tonight this is the end of the school committee meeting. It's almost 9 o'clock, so everybody go home and enjoy your night.
Make a motion.
A motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.